Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 19 of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the cloudy and rainy confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. As always, like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. And I want to hop right into today's episode. Today's episode, we're going to touch on some Eagles news and notes. So my fellow Bird Gang brethren out there and fellow Eagles flock, we're going to definitely make sure we hop on the subjects for the day. A couple of news and notes that I randomly was selecting throughout the week that I definitely felt like I wanted to touch on and review. Hopping right into it, something that's kind of a little bittersweet for me because I'm optimistic about the future, but I'm a little sad because this guy has been a productive player for us. I've come to the conclusion after the draft is settled and after things have kind of processed out and looking at it now and that we're a couple weeks removed, this is Darius Slay's last season. And it's not because he's played bad. He actually had a good year last year, even with injury. Darius Slay's 33, and you saw this year with them getting Quinyon Mitchell, with them getting Cooper DeJean. You saw that they're clearly making a concerted effort to address the defensive backfield. So it's kind of deep for me because I noticed Quinyon Mitchell even said during the draft Darius Slay was the guy he modeled his game after. So it's deep, it's real deep to see this. It's kind of, like I said, kind of bittersweet because Slay's been a great leader on that defensive, for that team. And, I don't know any Eagles fan, myself included, that hasn't been happy since he's arrived from Detroit. I mean, he's one of the best trades Howie made. The money's been worth it, even with him leaving and then coming back, how he handled that, everything. So it's going to be bittersweet to see him go after this season, but, optimistic about the future. But nonetheless, it's really looking like it's going to be Darius Slay's last season. The next thing, which leads into this, because we're still talking about defensive backfield, what is going to happen with Cooper DeJean? It seems like now, from some of the comments that we've heard from some of the defensive coaches and some of the things that the team wants to run scheme-wise, it seems like he is going to play outside. Now, we know in the draft coverage that I did and some of the reviews that we did, that they spoke heavily about Cooper DeJean and saying that his, hips were tight and he wasn't going to really translate to outside corner. But the Eagles now have Christian Parker. Christian Parker was with Vic Fangio in Denver. Christian Parker was a guy who was the credit, more or less, was credit and claim to fame to helping Pat Surtain's game grow in the NFL and help him reach the heights that he's now reaching in the NFL. So it'd be interesting to see. I'm not saying that he's adverse to it, but it's a bit of a risk. This guy wasn't really known as a, he was a good corner, but in the NFL, you're playing a little bit quicker, shiftier guys. You're not playing, Iowa State or, some of those, Penn State receivers who aren't going to even be a fourth or fifth round pick. You're playing, elite guys. Not trying to say, shit on him and say he didn't play anybody elite. He played top talent, but it's going to be very interesting to see because I thought they were going to try to put him in a nickel, but it seems like being that they have Avonte Maddox there, being that they have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, it seems like that's going to be like break glass in case of emergency type moves, but they're really going to try to allow this kid to play outside. And, we'll see. It seems that Hurts and Saquon Barkley are building a great camaraderie. I've watched several videos now where I've seen these guys working on the run pass option game, looking at, dumping the ball off in the backfield. It seems it's very effortless for Saquon to catch the ball. He's been putting on a lot of muscle. He's working out. I'm very impressed with how these two guys have built that camaraderie early. They're already working on the handoff. They're already working on the motion. They're already working on how they read the defense together. The conversation of the vernacular, the vocabulary that these guys are having amongst each other. It's all imperative for the Eagles to have the season that we all hope that they have. My fellow Eagles fans, we all hope that they have this year because, without it, this team's not going to survive. They need these two in cohesion, and I'm just happy to see it. The camaraderie is definitely there. My next bullet point that I wanted to kind of address is how good is Jalen Hunt? And it's been a question that's been rattling through my brain the whole offseason because he was a third round pick, kind of a some people said he was a reach, kind of a project, developmental guy, but listening to Vic Fangio speak about him in a press conference and then hearing the rumors and reports leading after the draft, it seems like Vic Fangio is very high on this guy. It seems like the defensive Jim Washburn, Jr. It seems like he's very high on this guy. So it's very, very interesting to see how they address it. I mean, I think the defensive line is set with the young guys that they have, Carter and Davis, and then, the rotation. I think, edge can still be possibly addressed, but I think, interior defensive line, they're pretty stacked there. They're pretty solid. But I think Jalen Hunt coming off that edge, as a pass rusher, the fact that Vic Fangio spoke to how excited he is about using him and where he's talking about using him and how he can utilize him and, using him just pretty much to just cause terror at the quarterback and just, give the quarterback fucking hell. I'm excited. I don't know how good this kid will be. I don't know how, his game will translate right away, but, the fact that they speak this highly of him and the potential, I'm very excited. And one other news note I wanted to touch on, this is undrafted free agent news. It's something I didn't get to touch on in the prior episode when I spoke on the Eagles. I want to make sure I spoke on it today. Undrafted rookie free agent Sean Stevens. Now, Sean Stevens, for y'all that don't know, Sean Stevens is the younger cousin to Steelers cornerback Joey Porter Jr. This story is kind of interesting. He was initially being requested to come in for a visit for the Steelers. He was going to work out for the Steelers, got plugged in through his cousin. Ironically, the Eagles sent him a request as well. Once the Eagles got him in the building, he didn't leave, wound up signing a contract, and he's been one of their most unheralded because most people don't know him, but he's been talked about a lot, in the Philly media. This year has been one of those guys we're definitely going to keep an eye on in camp because he looks quick, he looks like he makes the plays, has the mentality and the tenacity to play the position. And just some numbers that I ran over, ran through while I was watching, the press conference and reading up on this kid. I'm very impressed. I mean, I must admit, if Vic Fangio if he can make the roster, I'm very interested to see how Vic Fangio and Christian Parker utilize this kid. He played at a Division II school. He played at Ferris State University. And for those that don't know, I'll be honest with you, I had to look it up. I didn't know where the hell it was, but it's in Illinois. Nonetheless, he had 8 interceptions last year, 25 tackles. And out of those 25 tackles, 18 were by himself. So he's a hitter. He hits and he knows how to get to the ball. That's great signs from a corner. Now, he was undrafted because, again, he was Division II. Wasn't, I had to fucking search for his draft profile. I mean, that's how real it was. It wasn't like there was a shitload of information on this guy. But this guy, looking at the tape that I saw, the film I watched from last season, he played very well. And, it's definitely needed. It's definitely another shot in the arm that can help that defensive back row. I mean, looking at it, this kid's starting to get on the radar. You got Isaiah Rodgers. You brought Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back. You brought Avonte Maddox back. You got Slay healthy. Let's see what you get out of Bradbury. You grab Quinyon Mitchell. You grab Cooper DeJean. The defensive backfield should be completely better than what they were a year ago. I mean, it would be a fucking travesty as an Eagles fan if that defensive backfield, or defense as a whole, was any worse than what they were a year ago. I just highly doubt it. And another thing with Sean Stevens, I want to make sure before I go on to the next topic, he would let his conference and passes defended, something Quinyon Mitchell was known for. So I'm starting to notice a theme with the corners, especially Cooper DeJean. Cooper DeJean didn't lead college football with pass defended, but he was in the top 10. Quinyon Mitchell led, pass defended. This kid in Division II, Sean Stevens, led in his conference and pass defended. So you got guys that can cover the receiver and more or less get the ball away from the, potentially away from the receiver. And that's all you ask for at that position. Make sure the receiver doesn't complete the catch. So very interested and very excited about this defensive backfield and, the potential, what it could be. Having said that, a very interesting note that I wanted to get into, Kenny Gainwell. Kenny Gainwell was on a podcast recently. He spoke on last season's collapse, and he stated that it seemed that the real problem was connection issues with the team. Apparently, Kenny Gainwell said that, it wasn't like guys were beefing, nothing like that, but it seemed like guys were, mercenary status, coming in, I'm getting paid, I'm paid to do a job, coming here, ain't really no team building or team bonding. It's just like, you do your thing, I do my thing, and we on our way. Which, again, is, not, I don't think is the prime indicator, but it's something that definitely does affect the team. I can see so far from this camp, seeing the veterans plugging in with the young guys, seeing how everything's looking. It shows, Kenny Gainwell is also one of the veterans that's there. It's showing that, the culture and the tone's being set, the camaraderie is being built. So I don't foresee any of these issues being an issue coming this season. I mean, I'll be honest with you. it just seemed like, the coaching was shitty and things fell apart. I don't know if it was, maybe that was a connection issue too. I don't know specifically to what he meant. He didn't really digress into it, but again, I don't foresee that being an issue going into the season either. And last but not least, I wanted to wrap up with Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore's press conferences, which I watched entirely through. Both of them were around 17 to 18 minutes. So a little under 20 minutes, they talked to both of them and got a lot of interesting tidbits. I mean, I cannot fucking lie to y'all. I am excited about this season. I am very excited about what these coaches could do with these young players. And I'll dive into it real quick. Vic Fangio went first. So news and notes that I gathered from his press conference. He stated that the scheme will differ each week, depending on the opponent, which I think makes the most sense, especially in today's game. You're playing a lot of high-octane offenses, playing a lot of teams that know how to adjust and can utilize their players in different ways, whether the Kyle Shanahans or the Kevin O'Connells or Sean Payton, so on and so forth. You always want to make sure that your scheme is diverse and can match what that offense is throwing at you. So I thought that was interesting. He said he would throw a lot at his players early to see what they can handle. So that means he's throwing everything at them. And from there, he's going to judge what they can handle, what they can't, and then that's what he'll teach. So, that's good too. You don't want to throw too much at guys and expect them to get it all and just keep trying to run everything and add to it. It just creates a clusterfuck. He said he feels real good about the linebackers. He said Trotter has to come in, obviously, and play well, but he spoke highly on Devin White. He spoke to the linebackers that were here. Again, very excited about, he was very excited about the potential of those linebackers, what they could do in his defense. And he said his high priorities for his scheme, which I thought were very interesting. He said limiting explosive plays and getting pressure on the quarterback. Something I think in Philadelphia, we all know that we pride, every defensive coordinator that comes through here, he has to fucking pride himself on. That's needed. If that's not one of the tenets of your defense, you're not going to last here. So, that's definitely great to hear. And last tidbit that Vic Fangio gave in regards to the defensive backfield, he said that he spoke very highly of Quinyon Mitchell and that, Mitchell's the type of corner that he would like in his defense and, he's the type of player that he likes and he really feels that he'll grow with Christian Parker. And we've seen what Christian Parker could do with Patrick Surtain Jr., so let's see what he does with Quinyon Mitchell. The sky's the limit. And last thing he spoke on, because I know it was going to come up at some point, they asked him will his edge rushers play in coverage, and he stated that they will. Which I think now, for any Eagles fan that was curious as to why they got rid of Hassan Reddick or why they possibly would have made that move, it's real simple now. Hassan Reddick is not good at pass coverage. So now you see why it looked like Bryce Huff, essentially was traded for him, and then they made other moves. They need young, athletic guys that can play in space too, as well as, rush the quarterback. And Hassan Reddick, his specialty is rushing the quarterback, strictly. So it explains a lot with that move and just makes complete sense as to why he's going and he's now with the Jets. And again, I hope my man Reddick prospers. I love Hassan Reddick. I loved him as an Eagle. He's a Camden guy, so another Jersey brethren, Jersey bro in the building. And I hope he does well because we need that extra traffic. We can definitely use it. The more the merrier. So, we'll see. Going into next, last but not least, is Kellen Moore and his take. And there was a lot that Kellen Moore gave in his interview. So I'll try to make sure I get as much in there as possible. He spoke very highly of the offense. And specifically, he spoke to the guys at how he grabbed. So that let me know that he probably had some insight and some say-so as to who specifically he would like to see in his offense. He spoke about his scheme and how he what he adds to the offense and that he will not change from what's already been done and what's been successful. He's just more or less going to add his scheme and add some new wrinkles, some different things to give defenses something else to look at and be thrown off with possibly new wrinkles, for lack of better words. He said he's going to embrace Jalen Hurts as a runner, which I think is fantastic. That's something that can't be taken out of his game. The threat of Jalen running, keeps this offense afloat. He had 603 rushing yards last year, and God knows he had 7 or 8 touchdowns. Jalen is just, he's the shit. Especially as a running quarterback, he's the shit. And his running ability makes this offense wide open. So limiting that would have hurt, and it's good to see Kellen Moore is not trying to do that. He also said that they've worked on constant communication, something that him and Jalen have been working on throughout the offseason. As I've stated, Jalen is actually, there. He's been there through rookie minicamp, so something he's been working with throughout the offseason with the coaches. Something else I thought was interesting to note, too. I didn't know this, guys, funny enough. He said the Eagles will use more pre-snap motion, which, again, I understand a lot of teams use it. funny enough, something I didn't know, the Eagles were dead last in the NFL in pre-snap motion. So it probably kind of helped telegraph what you were doing because you're not really moving and they kind of know your cues. So, it's definitely going to help providing new wrinkles on the offense on tape because it's just going to make defenses guess and not know. And it's just setting up more opportunities for the offense to be explosive. So very excited about that. He spoke to Hurts will have a clean operation against the blitz, meaning, he won't have much to think about. They'll have cues and certain words and the verbiage set up for him to make the adjustments that he needs to, get guys in position and get the line straight and get the receivers where they need to be, just making it less of a clusterfuck and making it way easier for him to make the decisions and get the ball where it needs to be for the team to be successful and keep moving it down the field to eventually score. And another thing he spoke to was Jalen has worked extensively with quarterback coach Doug Nussmeier, and they've worked with him a lot on verbiage and terminology, which again, this is a huge season, so it makes sense. Jalen hasn't really had consecutive coordinators throughout his career. When he did have with Shane Steichen, made the playoffs both years, obviously made the Super Bowl his second season. So this is huge. I'm glad to see that they're attacking it early. I'm glad to see that they're not bullshitting and wasting time. They're making sure that they're addressing all these things early. They've been busy, a lot of teaching, a lot of implementation. And I'm just excited to see how this team, utilizes it. Because once they pick it up, they're going to be deadly. I really believe that. So that's about it as far as the Eagles news and notes as far as the week. If anything else comes up throughout the weekend, obviously I'm going to report on it. But to my fellow Bird gang, fly Eagles fly. Love y'all. As always, to anyone who is watching, listening, like, share, and subscribe. Take care. Best of luck. See you on the next one.